The Crystal Pavilion glittered with 300 guests celebrating my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. Ice sculptures, live orchestra, champagne fountains, everything screamed expensive elegance. My mother had spent months planning this gala, determined to showcase the Harrison family's success to Seattle's elite. I stood near the bar watching my parents work the crowd with practiced charm. My father, Thomas Harrison, CEO of Harrison Consulting. My mother, Eleanor, who chaired half the charity boards in the city. Power couple, influential family, the whole package. Next to them, basking in their attention, was my cousin Melissa. 28 years old, recently promoted to junior partner at her law firm, engaged to a surgeon. She wore a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. I wore a simple black dress I'd owned for 3 years. Elegant enough for the event, but nothing that would draw attention. "Samantha, darling, there you are," my Aunt Joyce said, approaching with a champagne flute. "Hiding by the bar as usual?" "Just enjoying the party, Aunt Joyce." "Well, you should mingle more. Make connections. That's how Melissa built her career, networking at events like this." She gestured toward my cousin, who was laughing at something my father had said. "She's such a success. Your parents must be so proud." "I'm sure they are," I said neutrally. "Not that you haven't done well too," Joyce added quickly, her tone suggesting she didn't actually believe that. "Your little business is quite nice." "Thank you. What is it you do again?" "Event planning. Venue management and commercial real estate development." "Oh, how nice. Like party planning but with buildings." She patted my arm condescendingly and drifted away. I sipped my champagne and watched the gala unfold. Everything was perfect. The lighting, the flow, the timing. Of course it was perfect. I designed every detail. My company Apex Venues owned the Crystal Pavilion. We'd purchased it 2 years ago, gutted the interior, and rebuilt it as Seattle's premier event space. The renovation had cost $8 million. Now it generated over $3 million annually in bookings. My parents didn't know that. They'd hired the venue through our sales manager, never realizing their daughter owned the building where they were celebrating. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, tapping the microphone. "Our hosts would like to say a few words." My parents took the stage, my mother resplendent in her gown, my father distinguished in his tuxedo. They thanked everyone for coming, talked about 35 years of marriage, made jokes about growing old together. Then my mother's tone shifted. "We're also here to celebrate family. Our wonderful family." She gestured toward Melissa. "Many of you know our niece Melissa, but tonight we'd like to introduce her as something more. Melissa has been like a daughter to us, in many ways more than a daughter. She's everything we hoped to raise. Successful, ambitious, driven." My stomach tightened. "Melissa recently made junior partner at Davidson & Cole, one of Seattle's top law firms," my mother continued, beaming. "She's engaged to Dr. Ryan Mitchell, a brilliant surgeon. She's involved in our charitable work, sits on multiple boards, represents everything the Harrison family stands for." The crowd applauded. Melissa blushed prettily, waving like she'd just won an award. "So tonight," my mother said, "we'd like to officially welcome Melissa as our successful daughter. The daughter we're proud to introduce to everyone." I was standing 15 feet away, visible to half the room. My own mother was calling my cousin her daughter while I stood there holding a champagne glass nobody had bothered to refill. My father added, "We're blessed to have Melissa in our lives. She's proof that the Harrison legacy of excellence continues." We couldn't be prouder. More applause. Melissa joined them on stage and they posed for photos, the proud parents and their successful daughter. I remained at the bar, invisible. My actual sister, Jennifer, found me a few minutes later. She was the only family member who'd even acknowledged my presence tonight. "That was brutal," she said quietly. "Sam, I'm so sorry." "It's fine." "It's not fine. They literally introduced Melissa as their daughter while you were standing right there." "They introduced her as their successful daughter," I corrected. "There's a difference." Jennifer squeezed my arm. "You know you're successful too, right? You own a business. You employ people. You're doing great." "I know. But they don't see it that way." I gestured toward my parents who were still chatting with Melissa on stage. "They see someone who didn't become a lawyer or marry a doctor. Someone who chose commercial real estate over a respectable career. To them, I'm the disappointment." Have you told them? About Apex venues? About what you've built? I've tried. They don't listen. Last year at Christmas I mentioned I'd purchased a property downtown. Dad said, "That's nice, don't overspend on hobbies." When I said it was a business investment, Mom changed the subject to Melissa's promotion. "They're idiots," Jennifer said loyally. "They're my parents. They have a very specific idea of success and I don't fit it." The dinner service began, an elaborate 5-course meal I'd approved personally with the venue's catering director. Every detail had been planned by my team, executed by my staff, perfected under my supervision. My parents would never know. I sat at a table in the back with Jennifer and her husband Mark, along with some family friends who'd clearly been seated as far from the important tables as possible. The rejection table. The people who don't matter table. "This venue is incredible," Mark said, looking around appreciatively. "The architecture, the lighting, someone put serious thought into this design." "The owner did a complete renovation," I said, not mentioning that I was the owner. "Took a dated event space and transformed it into something modern and functional while preserving the building's historic character. Whoever did it has excellent taste. I'll pass that along." Through dinner I watched my parents fawn over Melissa. They introduced her to influential guests, talked up her accomplishments, posed for endless photos. The successful daughter. The one they were proud of. I ate my salmon and drank my wine and reminded myself that I didn't need their validation. I'd built something remarkable without their support. Their opinion didn't change the reality of my success. But it still hurt. After dinner the MC took the stage again. This was the moment my venue director and I had planned carefully. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to dancing, I have some special acknowledgments to make. This beautiful venue, the Crystal Pavilion, has become Seattle's premier event space, and we're honored to host tonight's celebration." My mother preened, probably thinking this was part of the general hosting praise. The Crystal Pavilion is owned by Apex Venues, a local commercial real estate development company specializing in transforming historic properties into modern event spaces. Tonight's celebration wouldn't be possible without their incredible facility. My father was nodding along, clearly not paying close attention. "And now I'd like to invite the owner of both Apex Venues and the Crystal Pavilion to join me on stage. Please welcome Samantha Harrison." The pause before the applause was deafening. I could feel 300 pairs of eyes turn toward me as I stood from the rejection table and walked to the stage. My mother's smile froze on her face. My father looked like someone had hit him with a brick. I took the microphone from the MC, my hand steady despite my racing heart. "Thank you. I'm Samantha Harrison, founder and CEO of Apex Venues. We're honored to host my parents' anniversary celebration tonight in our flagship property." The crowd applauded uncertainly, confused by the tension suddenly crackling through the room. "The Crystal Pavilion is particularly special to me," I continued. "We purchased this building 2 years ago as a derelict event space with outdated facilities and declining bookings. My team and I invested $8 million in a complete renovation. Structural upgrades, modern systems, historic preservation, design elements that honor the building's 1920s heritage while providing contemporary amenities." I pulled up a slide on the screen behind me, before and after photos of the venue. The transformation was dramatic. The renovation took 18 months. We employed over 200 local contractors and craftspeople. The result is what you see tonight. A venue that hosts over 300 events annually, generates $3 million in revenue, and employs 42 full-time staff members. More applause, this time genuine. People were starting to understand. Apex Venues owns 4 properties in Seattle, I continued. The Crystal Pavilion, the Harbor View Center, the Riverside Ballroom, and the Madison Garden Estate. Combined, our portfolio is valued at approximately $47 million. We're currently under contract to purchase 2 additional properties, which will expand our operations into Tacoma and Bellevue. My mother had gone completely pale. My father's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. "I want to thank my parents for choosing the Crystal Pavilion for their celebration tonight. And I want to acknowledge my incredible team." I gestured toward where my venue director and catering manager stood, who made tonight possible. "These are the people who transform empty buildings into spaces where families create memories. I'm proud to work alongside them." I handed the microphone back to the MC and stepped off the stage. The applause followed me, but I barely heard it over the ringing in my ears. Jennifer grabbed me as soon as I reached our table. "Oh my God. Sam, that was amazing. Was it too much?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. Did I just humiliate my own parents at their anniversary party? "You told the truth," Mark said firmly. They needed to hear it. My parents were making their way through the crowd toward me, Melissa trailing behind looking confused. Other guests intercepted them, congratulating them on having such a successful daughter, asking questions about Apex venues, mentioning they'd like to tour the facilities. My father reached me first, his face unreadable. "Samantha, we need to talk. Now. We're at your anniversary party, Dad. We can talk later." No. In private." He gestured toward one of the Crystal Pavilion's private rooms, the ones I'd designed specifically for situations like this, where hosts needed private space during events. In the small lounge, my parents confronted me. My mother's carefully composed expression had cracked, revealing anger and confusion underneath. "What was that?" she demanded. "You humiliated us in front of 300 people." "I told them I own the venue where they're celebrating," I said calmly. "How is that humiliating? You made us look foolish. You let us introduce Melissa as our successful daughter while I what? Stood there holding my champagne glass 3 feet away, completely invisible to you. Kept my voice level. Mom, I didn't humiliate you. You humiliated yourselves." "That's not fair," my father said, though he sounded uncertain. "We didn't know you owned this venue. Because you've never asked about my business. Not once. I've mentioned Apex venues dozens of times over the past 5 years. You've dismissed it every single time as that real estate thing, or Sam's little hobby. You said you managed properties," my mother protested. "I said I owned and managed commercial real estate. I said I was renovating historic buildings. I said I was expanding my business." I pulled out my phone and showed them the Apex Venues website. "This has been public information for 5 years. You've just never bothered to look." My father scrolled through the site, his expression growing more shocked with each page. 4 properties. 47 million in assets. "Samantha, this is substantial." "Stat. It is. I've built something remarkable. While you were telling everyone Melissa was your successful daughter, I was the actual successful daughter standing 15 feet away." "We didn't mean it like that," my mother said weakly. "Didn't you? You literally said Melissa was more than a daughter, and everything you hoped to raise. What am I supposed to take from that?" She had no answer. "I love Melissa," I continued. "She's my cousin and she's accomplished and she deserves recognition. But she's not your daughter. I am. And you just publicly disowned me in favor of someone who better fits your idea of success." "That's not what we meant to do," my father said, sinking into a chair. "Samantha, we're proud of you." "Are you?" "Because I've never heard it. Not when I graduated college. Not when I bought my first property. Not when I opened my company. Not ever." I felt tears threatening but pushed them back. "You're proud of Melissa because she's a lawyer. You're proud of Jennifer because she married well. But me? I'm the one you seat at the back table with the people who don't matter. The seating arrangements were just what? A reflection of how you value me." I shook my head. "I sat at table 27, Dad. The rejection table. While Melissa sat with you at table 1, being introduced as your daughter to 300 people. My mother was crying now, mascara running. "We didn't realize. We didn't understand what you'd built." "You didn't care to understand," I corrected. "Every time I tried to tell you about my work, you changed the subject or suggested I pursue something more stable or prestigious. You made it clear my choices disappointed you. So you did this public announcement," my father asked. "To prove us wrong?" "No, Dad. The MC was always going to acknowledge the venue owner. That's standard for events at the Crystal Pavilion. We thank the team that makes celebrations possible. I didn't plan some dramatic reveal. I just decided not to hide anymore." "You could have told us beforehand," my mother said. "You could have warned us." "Why? Would it have changed anything? Would you suddenly have seen me as successful instead of seating me at table 27 and introducing Melissa as your daughter?" They didn't answer. "I need to get back to the party," I said. I have actual work to do. This is my venue, my staff, my responsibility. We can talk about this later when you're ready to actually listen. I left them in the private lounge and returned to the ballroom. The party continued, though now guests kept approaching me with congratulations and questions. Business cards were exchanged, potential bookings discussed, connections made. Jennifer found me again. Mom and Dad. Shocked, angry, confused. The usual. I accepted another champagne flute from a passing server. One of my servers working my event. They'll get over it or they won't. I'm done trying to earn their approval. Good, Jennifer said firmly. You deserve better. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. My parents stayed playing the gracious hosts, but they avoided me. Melissa approached once, looking uncomfortable. Sam, I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to say those things. I didn't ask to be called their daughter. I know, Mel. This isn't your fault. I meant it. Melissa hadn't asked to be the favorite. You're genuinely successful and they're right to be proud of you. But they should be proud of you too. This venue is incredible. What you've built, Sam, it's amazing. Thanks. That means a lot. She hugged me tightly. I'm sorry they made you feel invisible. After midnight, as guests began leaving, I found my venue director overseeing the breakdown. Everything went smoothly. Perfect execution, she confirmed. Though I imagine the family dynamics were complicated? You could say that. I watched servers clearing tables with practiced efficiency. Make sure the staff gets a bonus for tonight. They handled a difficult situation with perfect professionalism. Will do, boss. I stayed until 2 a.m. supervising the breakdown, ensuring my venue was properly cared for. This was my building, my business, my responsibility. Long after my parents and their guests had gone home, I was still working. The next morning, I got a call from my father. Samantha, your mother and I would like to see you. Can you come to the house? When? Now, if possible. Please. We need to talk. I drove to my parents' house, a large colonial in an exclusive neighborhood. Growing up, I'd thought it represented success. Now I saw it as status-seeking, appearances over substance. Both parents were waiting in the living room, looking exhausted. My mother's eyes were red from crying. We owe you an apology, my father began. A massive, complete, unequivocal apology. We stayed up all night looking at your company's website, my mother added. Reading articles about your renovations, your business model, your impact on Seattle's event industry. There was a profile in Seattle Business Monthly, my father said, from last year. About up-and-coming entrepreneurs under 40. You were featured. We never saw it because we never looked. Because we didn't think your work was worth looking at, my mother said, her voice breaking. We were so focused on traditional markers of success, law degrees, medical careers, corporate jobs, that we couldn't see what you were actually achieving. The Crystal Pavilion alone is worth $23 million, my father continued. You took a failing property and transformed it into Seattle's premier event venue. The business acumen required for that, the vision, the execution. Samantha, that's extraordinary. We introduced Melissa as our daughter, my mother said. In front of 300 people. While you stood there. Our actual daughter, who had literally provided the venue for our celebration, who'd created the space where we were standing, who'd built something remarkable, and we called someone else our successful daughter. Yes, I said simply. You did. We can't undo that, my father said. We can't take back what we said. But Samantha, we need you to know, we're proud of you. Profoundly proud. We should have been saying that all along. Why weren't you? I asked. What about my success didn't fit your expectations? My mother thought about that. I think we couldn't see past our own definitions. Commercial real estate didn't sound prestigious to us. We didn't understand what it meant, so we dismissed it. We compared you to Melissa's law career and Jennifer's marriage without ever actually understanding your work, my father admitted. That was our failure, not yours. I sat down across from them, suddenly exhausted. For 5 years I've been trying to get you to see me, to understand what I was building. And you just didn't care enough to look. We care, my mother insisted. We've always cared. We just showed it terribly. Words are easy, I said. Show me through actions. Come to my properties. Meet my staff. Understand what I've actually built instead of what you assumed I was doing. We will, my father promised. Starting today. Will you give us a tour of the Crystal Pavilion? Show us what you've created. I considered refusing. But what would that accomplish? They were finally seeing me. Finally understanding. Wasn't that what I'd wanted? Fine, I agreed. This afternoon. 3 p.m. I'll show you everything. At 3 p.m., my parents arrived at the Crystal Pavilion. I gave them the full tour. The renovated ballrooms, the state-of-the-art kitchen, the bridal suites, the historic architectural details we'd preserved. I showed them the before photos, explained the renovation challenges, walked them through the business model. This is a $3 million annual revenue property, I explained as we stood in the main ballroom where they'd celebrated just 12 hours ago. But it's not just about revenue. It's about creating spaces where families celebrate milestones, where couples get married, where companies honor achievements. We're in the memory-making business. It's beautiful, my mother said quietly. Samantha, what you've done here, the vision, the execution, the purpose, it's genuinely beautiful. You transformed a failing asset into something meaningful, my father added. That takes real business acumen. I underestimated you. Badly. Yes, you did. Can we make this right? My mother asked. Can you forgive us? I thought about that question. About being seated at table 27. About being invisible while Melissa was crowned the successful daughter. About 5 years of dismissal and condescension. Eventually, I said. But Dad, Mom, you need to understand that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You hurt me. Publicly. That has consequences. What consequences? My father asked. We rebuild our relationship on my terms. No more dismissing my work. No more comparing me to Melissa or Jennifer. No more assuming I need career advice or life guidance. You accept that I'm successful by any reasonable measure. Deal, my mother said immediately. Samantha will do better. We'll be better. Show me, I said. Through actions. Not words. Over the next few months they did. My father came to every property tour, asked intelligent questions about operations and strategy. My mother attended my industry events, introduced me to her contacts, advocated for my business in her social circles. They wrote apology letters to Jennifer and Melissa, acknowledging how they'd pitted us against each other. They changed the seating chart for future family events. They tried. And slowly, painfully, we rebuilt what they'd broken. A year after the disastrous anniversary gala, we had dinner at the Riverside Ballroom, another Apex Venues property. Just family. No spectacle. No performance. To Samantha, my father said, raising his glass. Our daughter. The successful businesswoman who built an empire while we were too blind to see it. We're proud of you. We should have said that years ago. To Sam, Jennifer added. The sister who never gave up even when we didn't deserve her patience. To my cousin, Melissa said with a smile. Who showed all of us what real success looks like. I raised my glass to them all. To family. Imperfect, complicated, but trying. We drank, and for the first time in years I felt seen. Not because of my net worth or property portfolio. Not because of revenue or business acumen. But because they finally understood who I was and what I'd built. I was Samantha Harrison. They'd introduced my cousin as their successful daughter while I stood 3 feet away. But I'd owned the building where they humiliated me. And somehow that had changed everything.